And good afternoon, BounceBack Network, and welcome to the ninth episode of the Global Entrepreneurship Business Excellence Coaching Series. Sorry for that, Business Excellence Coaching Series. I'm here with my colleague, Colin Christie. See, hi,
Hi,
Colin.
Sam. Here we are
I see.
again. The
Yeah, I
weeks
know.
go the weeks go by faster every week. I don't know
I
what's
know
happening.
the rainy weather is affecting me now, Colin. I seem to be sluggish a bit, because I was anticipating a lot of thunderstorms because that's what the weather, man has predicted. Thunderstorms in Metro Manila, in Central Luzon. Gladly, we're not able to be affected, especially our internet connections and our power lines, Colin. So,
That's right.
yeah, yeah, we're here 9 weeks, Collins. Like, you know, you can do a lot already with 9 weeks. Right? And again, thank you for joining us today. On behalf of our other colleague, Dishen Maharaja, who cannot join us right now. Welcome again to the ninth episode. It's like, Collins, like one more and then we're done with season one, right? So,
That's right. And we're already at work thinking about next season. So it's been a lot of fun.
definitely. Yep, shout out to our three business interns, Karel, Nuri, and of course, Kat, who's at the backstage, or at the studio. They really are taking down notes, Colin, and they're helping us to prepare for season two, of global entrepreneurship, right? So quite excited, on what they have in store for us. Yeah, good, Colin.
Absolutely.
Yep. So,
Yeah.
Colin, why don't you introduce our guest? Again, a lot of my friends are asking a lot of questions already when I posted this yesterday. So, yep.
Sure. Yeah. I'm very excited about today, and it's always nice to introduce not only a super qualified guest, but also someone that I know well and is also a friend. So it's Attorney Marie Christine Duran-Schulze. She goes by Attorney March. She has an amazing academic background. She originally studied economics at UP, but then she was brave enough to take a dual degree JD and MBA at FEU Makati and De La Salle Graduate School of Business Makati. So can you imagine, Sam? I mean, doing
Yep.
both JD and MBA at the same time. So we'll have to ask her about that later in the Q&A.
Yep.
She was then admitted, of course, to the Integrated Bar of the Philippines the following year. And so now her field of expertise is quite broad. It spans mergers and acquisitions, venture capital. But what's really great, and one of the reasons I was so excited to invite her to this, is that she works with startup companies. And she works with them in their investment round. She represents high growth companies. She helps them with due diligence, with planning. She's been through the process with PESA and BOI registrations for her clients, all the multiple compliance things that need to happen. She's worked with investment, offshore companies and foreign entities as well. And she's worked with a lot of companies that are also in the BPO space. So she actually wears two hats herself, I guess one for each degree. On the legal side, she is managing director of Duran-Schulze Law, DDS Law. And then on the services side, she has a company called Filepino that we can ask her about later as well that offers a lot of great business services. So let's bring her in with that background. And March, it's so great to see you. You're looking terrific today, and nice to see you. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, welcome, Attorney March. First time in the BounceBack Network.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm so excited to be part of your episode. Thank you, Colin. I just saw you yesterday, and I'm like, wow, I'm so excited because I just learned from Sam that you have a huge network of viewers, and that's amazing. Especially, it allows people to get more information out of the Philippine environment, and it's information is power here.
Absolutely, and especially these days, with all the changes that have been happening with the pandemic. But anyway, March, we'll turn it over to you. I know you've had some prepared remarks that you'd like to deliver, so we're going to disappear off the stage for a little while and turn it over to you. I think Sam is already sharing your slides, so we're all good to go, and then we'll rejoin you when you're done. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, the topic that I'll be discussing for today would be the must-dos or the legal requirements for more small businesses. You have to understand that even though I've specifically stated here that it's for small businesses, it's really also applicable to large businesses. But if you're already large business, you're expected to have your own retained lawyer that should be already helping you with your corporate housekeeping. So there are several government agencies that you should be aware of that would be able to audit you and impose penalties if you are not filing reports to them. So these are Securities and Exchange Commission, DTI, Business Permit and Licensing Office with the City Hall, of course the BIR, the Pag-ibig, Social Security, Health Insurance, and the National Labor's Commission / the Department of Labor and Employment. So the DTI really doesn't ask for compliances, except that if you're a sole proprietor, you just need to be aware of your end of expiry of your registration. So don't wait until it expires, you renew it already. But if you are registered with the SEC, because you have a choice if you want to be registered with the DTI or the SEC, there are more reports for you to file as a corporation. So I will be discussing these reports, not only for the SEC, but also for the government agencies I've mentioned a while ago, so that you could be appraised as a small business that there are reports that you have to file, and if you don't, there are certain penalties that you may be asked to pay so that you would be current. So for the SEC, the usual would be the general information sheet. This is filed within 30 days from your annual general meeting, or if you don't file it, if you didn't have your annual general meeting, doesn't mean you don't have to file it. You still have to file it by the 30th of January of the following year. Your audited financial statements, if you have total assets of 600,000 pesos and above, you have to file for your audited financial statements. And this is filed within 120 days after the end of your financial period. For your GFS, this is General Forms of Financial Statement. A lot of people forget about this, but this is a form that you have to file with the SEC if your gross revenue is already 5 million and above. The last two, the MC28 and the OST, are new additions to the compliances with the SEC. So the email notice, because of the pandemic, the SEC now is forcing us to send them a notice of what email or emails to use if they want to reach you. So you have to disclose their your main email to use and your alternate email, and then your main mobile number and your alternate mobile number. These are the emails and the mobile numbers that they will be using if they want to communicate with you. And this is also connected with the OST, which is the online submission tool. So the SEC is now moving towards the filing online of the above forms that you should be filing with the SEC. So if you don't file or apply for the OST, you will have a difficulty filing electronically your GIS AFS. So if you are registered with the SEC, this is usually not being done, but it's recommended that you do a monitoring, meaning you ask for clearance from the SEC. Even if you know that you're filing regularly for your annual financial statement or audited financial statement, annual general information sheet, you may want to ask for a certificate of good standing with the SEC, because the SEC may flag you for some compliances that you failed to file, or there are some errors on your GIS or some errors on your audited financial statement that you are not aware of now, that the SEC will let you know if you have done the SEC monitoring. What are the usual issues or the red flags that the SEC would tell you if you undergo an SEC monitoring? So these are, you've made the wrong signatories under your SMR for the audited financial statement. You need the chair and the treasurer to be signing your audited financial statements. Some would put president, but if your president and chairman are two different persons, then you've already committed a mistake. So there are also multiple findings with the GIS for the same year. So you want to be recording that, why you've made 2 or 3 or even 4 general information sheets. There's no issue if you filed multiple, so long as you can explain why you've been filing multiple. general information sheet. For example, you've increased your authorized capital, you've expanded your capital, you've changed your corporate secretary, you've changed your officers, and so you need to update your general information sheet. That's fine, so long as you can explain to the SEC why you have been filing multiple GRS for the same year. Because otherwise, if you can't explain that, it can be a flag for an intra-corporate dispute, especially if the officers are different. And then you may not be aware that there's a new GIS template that's now being used. For example, the GIS template has just been released last February 2021. So if you're filing the template the year before that, then you have to update your general information sheet. So there are also penalties for the late filing and non-filing if you're not aware when to file or what to file. If you do the monitoring, the SEC will flag you of this. There are also potentially non-compliances with anti-dummy law, especially if you are a regulated industry or a partially nationalized industry. This is usually applicable if you have a 60-40 setup in your ownership of your company. You have to remember that foreigners cannot intervene in the management, administration, and control of your company. This means they can't be treasurer, they can't be chairman, they can't be president. So if they are recorded in your general information sheet as officers and it's been multiple years, then it can be a violation of the anti-dummy law. So you don't want that to happen. Okay, done with the SEC, now would be the business permit. Business permit is actually pretty easy. You're usually, you know that you have to file every year for your business permit and you have to pay for your business taxes. You can pay annual or you can pay quarterly. But what others do not know though, is there are three tricks or three items that you must be wary of. The first is you find a good place of business where you have complete documentation already. Others don't know that, when you have a place of business, you have to have an occupancy permit. So if your lessor does not have an occupancy permit, it would be very expensive for the lessee to get an occupancy permit because these are entirely making your own blueprints, and it's going to be expensive for you. The same with fire permit, sanitary permit, etc. Because if a fire permit, they will check your sprinklers, they'll check you if your place of business is compliant with the fire code. If your lessor who owns the unit that has been leasing it out to you do not have these permits, then it's up to you to comply with these permits. So it's always easy if your lessor has all these permits because the credentials will cascade down to you and it will be easier for you to get all these permits. The second one would be multiple primary purposes. Others would just know that if you have paid, divulge your total business receipts for the year, you're already done. But it's not really the case. If you have multiple primary purposes, meaning you have two businesses under one corporation, you may be liable to pay for two types of business taxes. So, for example, you're doing leasing and you're also doing business process outsourcing. That means you have to pay two types of business taxes. It would be an entry on your business process outsourcing. There's a separate business tax, and there would be a separate business tax for the leasing. And you have to understand that these two separate business purposes have different schedules of business tax rates. So even if you've paid or lumped up all of your revenues under the business process outsourcing primary purpose, and then you've missed out on the leasing, you will be considered as non-paying on the leasing, but overpaying on the business tax, on the business process outsourcing. So you don't want to happen because there is a surcharge of 25% and 20% interest per year if you are not paying the appropriate taxes for each of the business line. The third one would be if you have fluctuating business receipts. Because remember, when you do and get your business tax assessment for January 20th, you would be presenting your audited financial statements or your VAT returns for the previous year. But if you foresee that you will have a lot of business receipts and it would be entirely different from last year, consider paying quarterly, because you will be able to capture the surge and business receipts of your company. Why do you want to do that? well, it may push forward the taxes that you would have to pay, but when you do it and pay your taxes the following year, you will not have to worry about penalties and interest because you have already divulged of the fluctuation during the quarterly permits payment. Okay. So for other requirements, this is usually applicable if you're changing your office address from one city to another. You just have to be aware that each city would have different permit requirements. So it would be nice if you know ahead of time what these permits are so you can prepare, particularly those cities that would ask for health requirements from your employees. Because of the pandemic, it's usually a bottleneck for other clients. They are now having a hard time sending their employees to get an X-ray, urinalysis, sputum test, etc. So if you don't have these, it can be a bottleneck for you to get your business permit from these particular city halls. Okay. For the BIR, the bottom line is you really need to have your trusted accountant, trusted bookkeeping service provider, because these are a lot of permits, returns that you have to file every month, every quarter, and annually. I won't be discussing each line. I'm just presenting it in the screen right now so you can be familiar with and so that your accountant will not be hard pressed in explaining to you that why do you have to file for all these returns, because it is part of the code. So what I am telling you as a must do though is important if you have audit. If you're going to be audited by the BIR, you want to be prepared for future audits. So the way to be prepared is two things. One is, of course, proper documentation. You want to have all of your filings scanned, all of your email filings with the BIR saved in a particular file, easily seen, easily retrievable, so that when the BIR audits you, you can show them that within the time period for the BIR has given you, that all of the returns that they are asking you and all the proof of payment they're asking you are done and compliant with by your company. You also may want to consider having one particular email just for your BIR filings. Don't tag it to a particular employee, mainly because if your employee change and then you have to change that employee email, then you have to tell BIR that you have a different email to use, and it's going to be difficult especially if you are asked to give documentation for returns that has been that has happened like 9 years back. So it's best if you have accounting or BIR at whatever your company is, and then you use that forever so that everything will just be there when you need it. And the next one would be routine monitoring and tax clearance. This may not be for everybody, but if you are confident in your filings with your BIR returns and payments, you may want to consider to just get a tax clearance at least a year or every 2 years, mainly because even if you are sure that you have filed some returns and paid for some BIR tax payments, some returns, unfortunately, are not captured in the BIR system. Even if you filed it, it would show up in your monitoring as not filed. So if you catch it early, you can easily find it. The earlier, the better, because you may have shredded it down the line 3 years, 4 years when you are audited. And if you do this, you do the monitoring, you can easily document it. Oh, okay, this is the usual flag of the BIR, because it usually gets shown up. For example, what has been showing up as a monitoring for 2019, when you do your another monitoring for 2020, it can show up again for the 2019. So at least if you have started with your monitoring, you have these documentation already. It will be easier for you to parry or answer the BIR that you have complied with the returns. Okay. The last one would be under the BIR would be EFPS, or filing under electronic filing and payment system. To the left are those that are required under EFPS. What others don't know is if you are temp or you are a taxpayer under the taxpayer account management program or TAMP, and you get a notice from the BIR, you should automatically be applying for an EFPS, because if, for example, your employee failed to inform you that you are a TAMP, or you received the TAMP and you have no idea what to do with it, it's going to be difficult, because it's going to impose, the BIR will impose penalties for using the wrong venue, filing manually instead of filing through EFPS. Okay. The next one would be recurring reports for SSS, PhilHealth, and Pag-ibig. I'm going to consolidate all of these because it's essentially the same, except for the name of the forms that you have to file. So flash on the screen would be the reports you would be needing to file and when for the SSS, for the Pag-ibig, and for the PhilHealth. What is important though is, for all of these, for SSS, PhilHealth, and Pag-ibig, if there is any change in your staffing, for example, somebody was terminated, or you've added a new employee, or somebody's on a sick leave, you have to inform SSS, PhilHealth, and Pag-ibig. Remember, the premiums that you pay to the SSS, PhilHealth, and Pag-ibig are based on the number of your employees and based on their salaries. So if you don't inform the SSS, PhilHealth, and Pag-ibig, they'll usually ask for contribution on the higher level, as if there are no changes in your staffing. And then also the same with SSS, PhilHealth, Pag-ibig. What others don't know is they also issue certificate of good standing. Because of that, you may want to ask for a usual, at least every year, certificate of good standing, so that if there is non-payment, you can easily see if there is non-payment with SSS, PhilHealth, and Pag-ibig. This usually happens if you pay in cash. For example, you have an employee that you trust, you give the SSS, PhilHealth, Pag-ibig payment contributions that they have to deposit in the bank, and then unfortunately this person embezzled it. The way for you to catch that is easy, is if you get a certificate of good standing, because the SSS and the PhilHealth and Pag-ibig will give you a certificate that says, hey, you have been paying, or hey, you haven't been paying for this particular contribution months. Also, if there's some error in your filings, for example, in the cut and paste of the reports of your staff, they put the same year and the same month. There may be double posting for the same month and zero posting for the correct month. So with that, they will give you penalty for the month that you didn't pay, but they would just accept for the surge in payment for the double posting. So you don't want that to happen. You can only catch that if you have a separate team that would be doing due diligence with your filings, or if you also do the good standing, because the SSS, PhilHealth, and Pag-ibig will let you know of these things. All right. Okay. The last government agency would be the Department of Labor and Employment. Others are not aware of this, but if you are already operating, or if you're looking at being operating already, 30 days before that, you should already register your company with the DOL. This is called the Rule 1020, or the registry establishment. There are also other reports that you have to file with the Department of Labor and Employment. For example, your proof of payment of your 13th month pay. The next one would be annual work accident injury. This is not an annual medical report. OSH committee report. This is the meetings of the meeting. You do it quarterly. The new one would be the WA-EAR COVID form. This is a new requirement from DOL because of the COVID pandemic incident. Okay. The next one would be, I can see some questions being asked there. We can go through that one by one, maybe later. Okay. When you are already up and running, so there's no penalty that would be given to you by the government agency, but it can bite you at the back when you don't have proper documentation. If you're a company, I would suggest two things. Number one is you have to have your employment handbook. because your employment hand would clarify how to file the leaves, what are the penalties for certain offenses, your policies, and of course the grievance mechanism. As your company grows, your HR or your admin officer will be able to have some form of consistent rules to follow when imposing offense and suspensions or sanctions to your employees. Without this employment handbook, then you will have to make rules, and you may not be inconsistent as you make your rules down the line. And of course, you have to have an employment contract. Remember, if you don't have an employment contract, your employee is already a regular employee from the get-go. If you have an employment contract, you can delineate if that the status of that particular employee, if that's probationary, if that person is, even though a manager, he would still be entitled with 13-month pay. Because remember, if you are not a rank and file, you don't get the 13th month pay. Or if you're rank and file, that's the only time you get the benefits and overtime. But for some, to make your employment contract competitive, you give this extra benefits like 13-month pay. You give credits if there is extra work being done or extra time being spent by your employees. And also, you want to be clear on your confidentialities, moonlighting provisions, intellectual property, and liquidated damages provisions. You will only be able to insert that if you have an employment contract. Okay. Last one would be, second to the last would be, what to do is you have to have also proper documentation. I've repeatedly been raising this. You have to have proper documentation. If you have a lot of employees, it's good to have updated 201 files because you will need it in several aspects. One would be if you have a labor case against you as an owner of your company. If you have letters from the Social Security, Health Insurance, and Pag-ibig, and you have proof that these particular person have resigned, or you have proof that this particular person started only from this date, so you can show and contest for any future penalties or contributions with interest that these government agencies may ask of you because you have everything documented. Also, like I said, routine verification, you can also ask for a certificate of good standing with the Department of Labor. Generally, this is going to be good standing across the board if you have been audited by the labor officer, because once in a while there are labor officers that would visit your company if you're confirming with the lactation, or you have the specific dole required memos on hepatitis, smoking, sexual harassment, etc. And also if you have labor cases that are filed against you. Some labor cases you may be able to catch if you have this good standing, because if the labor cases filed against you are you did not receive it, you won't have any idea. But if you request for routine good standing from the Department of Labor, then you would be aware of this before it gets, before you get a final decision. At least you can contest these labor cases that may have been filed against you. The last one would be if you receive any communication with deadline from all of the government agencies that I have mentioned, consider letting a lawyer assist you. Consider an opinion from the lawyer, mainly because if you do it on your own, unless you're really sure that you know how to do what you're doing, you may be giving up some defenses that the lawyer may think that would be beneficial to you. Or you may lose your deadline to file, and you may have lesser remedies available to you if you've lost the deadline. There you go. Done. Oh no, I can't hear you.
Sorry, I was muted.
Okay.
We're both muted. We're both muted, Colin. So.
It's just you would think after a year of lockdown we'd be ready, used to the mute button, but not so much. So thanks so much, March. I think there's a lot to absorb there. So it's good that we're streaming, both on Facebook and YouTube, because it allows our audience to go back and rewatch and even pause, and maybe they can make themselves a checklist. But I wanted to just maybe deconstruct a bit what you advised and just start with some really basics, because we have even micro entrepreneurs here, and could you explain the difference between registering your business through DTI versus SEC, and then where is it appropriate for both cases? Let's maybe start there.
Yes, okay. If you're sole proprietor, meaning you don't have any business partners that you'd want to be recorded, you're the sole owner, it's easier to file for your registration with the DTI or the Department of Trade and Industry. In a day or even 3 days, you're done. Versus if you're with the SEC, you file as a corporation. Other than you have more documents and more filings, it's longer and it's more expensive if you do a corporation with the SEC. However, there are certain benefits if you are a corporation. Remember, if you are a corporation, you can, unless you're an OPC or one person corporation, you can have other owners of your corporation. So, for example, in the future, you may want to have expanded business partners who may want to be registered with you as business owners in the company, and they get dividends. You want to register them. And the only way to do that is you split the number of shares available in your company. You wouldn't be able to do that if you're a DTI registered, because you're a sole proprietor, meaning you're 100% owned by one person, one individual, and you can't sell yourself. So that's unavailable if you're a DTI registered. Another one that's good about a corporation is the limited liability. Since the corporation has a separate and distinct personality from the owner, if there are any liabilities, for example, the company didn't do well, there are lease liabilities, there are labor liabilities that you haven't paid, unless there is gross negligence, patent errors in your management, the company will die on its own and will die with its own liabilities. These liabilities will not be passed on to the stockholders or the directors. Versus if you are a DTI registered company or sole proprietor, it's one and the same. Your personality is one and the same, the sole proprietor and the individual. So even if you've had, personal assets that you're not using to continue doing business, if you run into trouble, your house, your car can be used as a lien to pay for your liabilities.
Yeah, that's great. If I could just, Sam, if I could just get in, just ask a couple quick follow-ups. One is it possible to start out as a DTI registered and then, just initially, and then as you grow, can you then register later as SEC? And then second would be, are there any kind of rules of thumb? Is it based on revenue, or, how would you decide if you're a micro entrepreneur? Do I start off with a DTI route, or do I go straight to a corporation?
I would look at it on the vision of your company. If you don't think you'll ever open up your company with other investors or other business partners, you can continue going on the DTI route. If you think your company will not encounter any liabilities because your company is very profitable, you don't have to worry about shutting down, then DTI is also okay, because even though there is a possibility, it will never happen that you would be personally liable to your creditors or your third-party providers, etc. You can start with DTI. A lot of people do that because it's cheaper and faster. You can do your business the following day once you're registered with the DTI. That's great. That's what's great about the DTI. And once you've grown, if you think that there are more exposures when you do business, or if you want to have other investors down the line, then you do the corporation, except that it's not like really a conversion of your company. You have to close the DTI and then open the corporation.
I see. Okay. So there is a process that you could go from one to the other. So, yeah, Sam, I think you had a question
Yeah,
there too.
I'm picking up one of our questions from our audience. So this is an advice for online businesses, attorney. So you know that a lot of Filipinos are selling online, right? So and then if they're not going to prioritize, the legal compliance, what are the pros and cons of it? Like most of these are actually one person or mom and pop shops that have gone online selling goods and services online, right? So they're not yet being tracked by the DTI or the BIR, no. But there may come a time and they will be, right? So again, your view on this, attorney.
The very first, the most important government agency that you have to be afraid of if you're not registered with will be the BIR. Okay, the BIR has the ability to shut you down. The BIR can file a criminal case against you if you're not paying the proper taxes. So it's going to be difficult because the BIR has anonymous filing or complaints if you don't file for your official receipts. It's okay, well, not really okay, but the liability would be little if you are dealing with your individuals. But if you're dealing with corporations already, they will need official receipts from you because they'll use that as an expense in their financial statements. If you're not registered, it's going to be difficult for you to capture that potential revenue, which is the corporations, because they would try to not transact with you because you don't have any official receipts that they can use with their financial statements.
So right now, again, this is another, it's a related question. How are online businesses going to be regulated moving forward, attorney? So you mentioned that the BAR, for example, can do their own investigation online, right? And if you're selling goods, without the proper business permits online, and then somebody complains, then they can file a case against you, right? So that's good. What about those that are selling goods outside of the Philippines? They're also present here. Like, I mean, there are a lot of companies that are messaging me online, selling their wares. From, I won't mention which country, but they're very quite and aggressive, and selling their goods here. So
Yep. The problem with that would be it. You can buy from Amazon, you can buy from Alibaba. It's okay. The thing would be, it's difficult. Frankly, it's going to be difficult for our government agencies to mainly tax these sellers that are based abroad. But what's good about the current platforms like Lazada and Shopee, they're quite strict in asking for the government permits. Where is your BIR? Where is your business permit? Before they will allow you to be registered in their platform, they ask for these government requirements. So you can continue selling online outside, but you are losing a lot of potential business if you're not registered with the local platforms. And having these local platforms are, I guess you could say, partners of the government agencies because they're going to being regulated here in the Philippines, having their business in the Philippines. They are also required to show and ensure that their partners, sellers, are also registered with the government.
Yep. And if you're not a compliant and registered business, you won't be able to avail of the benefits that the DTI, for example, gives. Currently, the DTI gives out loans, right, to entrepreneurs who need it. So I'm sure they'll only give it to those that are compliant, right, attorney?
Very good point. Actually, that's very good point. Especially if you want to take out a loan, not only with the DTI, but also with banks or even Pag-ibig. If you are doing online selling, you don't have ITR or internal tax return. You don't have business tax returns. So how are you going to prove that you have money coming in and out? It's going to be difficult for you to substantiate that if you're not registered.
That's good. Yeah. Colin, sorry, it's my last question, and then I had over. Attorney, there's a move to have a one-stop shop for people who want to go this online. I think it's ARTA, the anti-red authority that's driving it, right? So in partnership with those government institutions that you mentioned, because currently you need to go to each one of them, right, in order for you to to be compliant with all of that. So again, if you're are you aware of any developments in that one-stop shop, for entrepreneurs? Like in Singapore, you can have that. You just talk to one agency, and then you can set your business in less than 2 hours, right? So when will that day happen in the Philippines,
Oh my
attorney?
God, I've seen it. I've seen it. I'm very hopeful that it would be implemented soon. I'm excited if it's going to be implemented because when we register companies here under under Filepino, they would always complain, why does it always takes time? Like 4 months, 5 months, six
Mm.
months when we're done.
Mm.
Other companies in other countries, I mean, in minutes, in 3 days they're done. Why is it so long? Why does it take so long in the Philippines? So I'm
Mm.
I'm really excited. I hope our government figures it out because it's good income generating for the government, and it would also expand the ability of our fellow Filipinos to be entrepreneur and do their business because it's going to be easier. The barrier to entry would be entirely removed if you're
Mm.
able to register your company as fast as what Arta is promising.
Yeah, thanks. Colin, we want to invite Arta to be one of our guests, in
Yeah,
future shows. In
that's
season
a
two,
great
yeah.
idea.
Yep.
Yeah.
So even if we're not quite there yet with the sort of a one-stop shop approach, I'm wondering with the pandemic especially, how much of this can be done online? For example, I think you gave a very good advice. Make sure that you understand the BIR requirements. Do you have to go to a BIR office, or can you register online, or what? How do you get started?
Yeah, unfortunately for registration, a huge chunk of work has to be done manually. You
Mm.
send in your documents. For the SEC, they ask for scanned copies first, and then once they see everything's fine, they'd ask you to send the notarized documents manually. So that's great because before they would have to check it manually and then ask you to return if there's some issues. Now they check it online so that you lose a huge number of times back and forth of physically visiting the SEC. BIR is also good with the payment if you are in EFPS. Also, the banks, they have also you can pay with your registered banks. They've also started the Pay Maya. So if you have payment deadlines, you can do that through PayMaya. So you just have to pay a little bit of convenience fee, but versus going and falling in line to the banks, it's so easy now with BIR. But for the registration, it's still unfortunately manually. But after registration, it's so easy now.
Okay, great. That's really good to know. So I think then the next, so I think that kind of builds that foundation. Get registered, whether it's DTI SEC with BIR. Now, let's say your business, you started out just with yourself, perhaps DTI registered. You don't have any other shareholders, and let's say that you've been paying attention to the coaching series we've been doing. You've been learning how to build your business, and you start having some success, right, Sam? You start having some success, and now you're ready to start taking on some employees. What's your advice for a company that never hired people before? They're going to hire even just the first person or a couple people. What do they have to do there? Is that the point where they have to register as a permanent labor, or what do you advise? I mean, what about like some sort of employment contract? What's your advice to people that are bringing on employees for the first time?
Oh, yes. If you have an employee, you have to be registered with the SSS, PhilHealth, and Pag-ibig because it can be a criminal offense if you don't remit and pay their benefits if they complain, especially if they complain. It's also going to be hard for you to employ good people if they would know that you're not paying for their contributions because when they get sick, who's going to help them? When they need loans, they can't get assistance with Pag-ibig or the SSS because you're not registered and you didn't tell them. It can be a bit expensive because there's an employer contribution aside from the employee contribution that we will be deducting from their pays. But down the line, it's very beneficial if you are paying for registering your employees and paying their contributions because you're partners growing the business. As to what was the other one? Like, answer
But
everything.
I was saying, what about do you need to have a contract with an
Oh,
employee
yes,
or? Yeah.
contracts. Definitely, you have to have contracts. Colin, my God, you are remiss in your duties as a business owner if you don't have an employment contract with your
Contract. Yeah.
company, because it's a word of mouth. It's what he said and you said. You promised this, you didn't promise this. Where is it? Is it in writing? Is it in email? Especially if all the information is all over the place, it's going to be hard. It's going to be a headache and heartache for both of you if there is some issue or conflict if you don't put it in writing. So put it in writing.
That's great. And then can you explain, I think a lot of people don't understand the difference between hiring someone just as a contract worker versus an employee. Could you explain what that is? Because I think it's a very important distinction, and people don't really quite understand it.
Yes. An employee means there are four elements. You control not only the output, but you control how they do their work. You control the hiring. You control their behavior as how to do their work. Versus if you're an independent contractor, aside from the contract that says, hey, you're an independent contractor, you are not controlling how they do their work so long as they finish their work. So if you control how they complete their work, then it can be an element of an employee-employer relationship. So if there is an employee and employer relationship, they can still complain against you before the NLRC or the Department of Labor, and you don't want that to happen. But there's a good thing it's a lot of people may want to be an independent contractor even though the employer-employee relationship are present, mainly because the taxes from the beginning would be a little bit lesser than if you are an employee. If you're an employee, your tax is between 0 to 35%, and everything's already transparent because it's an expense of your company and you are going to report it to the BIR. Versus if you are an independent contractor, you are only initially going to be deducted 10 to 15% as a service provider if you're independent contractor. And then when you annualize it at the end of the year when you're required to file for your income tax return, that's the only time you pay for the bulk of if there's payment that you still have to catch up aside from the credits or the taxes that were withheld by your clients.
Yeah, attorney, on that note, no, we also have a lot of freelancers in BounceBack Philippines and BounceBack Network. So you mentioned IC, right, or individual contract or consultants. That's another term for them, right? They also need to register, right, to the BIR. Am I correct? Yeah, so that they can issue receipts, right? So can you tell us briefly about the process of for contractors, consultants, and freelancers, to register with the BIR, so that their services will be.
The form for business, I think it's 1904. There's a form with the BIR for registering as contractors, or if you're a doctor or if you're a lawyer. The requirements are in that written small, but it's easy. When you file for the registration of yourself, you just have to add the other requirements found in that list with the BIR. And then don't forget to get your official receipts because that's needed when you do business or you become an independent contractor. Other companies are not so strict when they hire independent contractors. They just withhold, but unfortunately for them, if they're audited, it can be an exposure for them with the BIR when they get their letter of audit if they cannot present an official receipt from their independent contractors or anything that's relating to their expenses.
Yeah, attorney, we discussed mostly on how to open a business and how to maintain a business. What about closing a business? So we have a lot of we have a lot of members also at the BounceBack Network that whose businesses have closed down. I mean, what are the requirements needed, and how much are you going to spend, for example, if you're going to close down your business?
Closing a business is way harder than opening a business. It can take you fastest maybe 6 to 8 months to close a business. versus opening a business. If you close a business, that would mean you have to go through all the government agencies that you have registered with. For example, if you've registered with the SEC, you have to close also with the SEC. But SEC is the last one. Before, SEC is the first one to be registered with, and then you register with the business permit, BIR, SSS, Phil Health, and Pag-ibig. Now, if you're going to close, the first one would be with the business permit section. The business permit section, BPLO would assess you if there are any business taxes that you failed to pay. So you close there at the BPLO. There are a lot of requirements for you to close, proof that you have not been operating already, and board resolutions that you have permanently closed. Those are the major requirements. And then once you get your certificate of closure with the BPLO, you're going to present that with the BIR. And then the BIR would start also with the business suspension, or if you just want to suspend, or business closure. At the same time, you also have to be closed with the SSS, PhilHealth, and Pag-ibig, because you have to close everything. You have to tell them that you're not having any more employees. You have to tell them that this is the last day of operations. You have to show them your board resolution so that they don't continue and asking for remittances of contributions from you. When you get all of these closures, you compile all of these clearances and you submit it with the SEC, because those are part of the requirements. Aside from your petition for dissolution with the SEC or shortening of term with the SEC, and then they will ask for proof of your clearance of closure with BPLO, BIR. You cannot move forward if you're not cleared with all these other government agencies that you have been registered prior. For the Department of Labor, there is what you call the RKS form. You have to inform the DOLE if there are retrenchment or redundation, and if you're just reducing your employees. You have to inform them, because it can be a potential proof
They were
that
kicked.
you're not closed from doing business.
That's a very, very painful process to describe.
It is
Yeah, I think that maybe more motivation to stick with your
Stay
business, to make it succeed.
Yes. I know. It's actually the reality now, like Colin, attorney, like 40% of MSMEs, that was the number given by TTI, have closed down. So they're either undergoing this or they're postponing it, because I believe that, you cannot do most of it online. You need to go there personally or have someone to do it for you. So again, it's like 10 times harder than opening a business. The way that you have described it.
Who would have thought of that? Yeah. So Sam, I know we only have a few minutes remaining. I just want to change up the discussion a little bit. So March has been super helpful understanding all of these requirements, but you also are an entrepreneur yourself. So, speaking now, not maybe as the attorney, but as a business owner and entrepreneur, tell us a little bit about your journey. Your company is Filepino. Tell us a little bit about, when did it start? What have you sort of learned yourself as an entrepreneur growing your own business that you might want to share with our audience?
Well, the Filepino was started in 2000, became operational in 2013. It was because of the prodding of actually my husband, who is an entrepreneur himself. Without him, I would not have entered into the crazy world of entrepreneurship. But it has been a journey. I started it because he had friends who has been complaining why it's so hard to do business, or it's so hard to start business in the Philippines. And he said, "Hey, your wife's a lawyer. Why can't she help me?" I'm like, and then it started from there, word of mouth, until I started my own business and assisted. It's always been transparency, and it's always been like letting people know, explaining to them why this is important, why you don't want to skip these requirements now, because at the end of the year, day, 5 years down the line, you can be penalized for things that you've skipped. It can be cheap for you then, but it will be way expensive because of the penalties and the surcharges if you don't do it properly. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your team. You're located in BGC, correct? You have an office there. What is the range of services that Filepino is offering now?
Yes, I'm very, very thankful for my team. Most of my team members have been with me from the time I've started the business in 2013. I have like 8 years loyalty award for some of my employees. They've been there from, ups and downs, mostly ups. But they've been with me for troubleshooting a lot of issues that we've encountered. Because even if you're a lawyer, you can't see everything. There are also new rules. So now we have about 44 team members in the company. We do business formation, we do visa services, we do accounting and payroll for the newly established companies. I say newly established because if you're already big or you're not that, you have a lot of employees already, you may want to consider having your own trusted employees because you can always count on them whatever happens if they're around. The good thing about having a service provider is whatever happens, they have the documents with you versus, if you have it just an employee helping you with, so you don't have to worry about attrition. We also do other services like business closures, the things that you don't want to do, especially if you just want to focus on your income generating or how to expand your business. You give or outsource the headaches to a service provider like Filepino.
That's great. I think hopefully we've got the attention of a lot of folks today to realize there's so many I's to dot and T's to cross, as they say, and better let the experts handle it. Yep. As you said very well there, you might think you're cutting corners now and saving money, but actually it's going to cost you in the long run. So, Mark, we'd love for people to know how to learn more about Filepino or get in touch with you or your associates. How would they go about doing that?
You can find us at our website, www.filepino, FILEPINO.com. It's filing, and Pino or Pinoy. And then you can also email us at info@filepino.com.
That's good. Yeah. We posted it already, Colin, on the comments. Yeah.
That's great.
And Colin, Edward Perez says hi. So one of our, you know him. So good afternoon, Edward. Thank you for watching us. And we have a question here from one of our audience in YouTube, Maria Luisa Monson, how to advertise your startup company with a potential client. So I think the answer there, ma'am, is you watch our previous episodes. So this was discussed in earlier episodes of the Global Entrepreneurship Business Excellence Coaching Series. So again, what a day, attorney, again, you opened our eyes on the importance of being compliant, right? And working in partnership with government. I think that's the main message here is that, government exists. We need to protect businesses and to help them grow, like primarily, and they're doing this for a reason, right? All of those rules, those regulations, they exist there for a reason, but primarily mainly to protect, number one, consumers like us also, and of course, the business owners and those who invest in those businesses, right, attorney? So that's the big picture message that I'm getting every time, I hear legal presentation for businesses. So. Okay, Colin, before we let attorney go, maybe some final words from Attorney March, to our audience. And again, welcome you to our second season, probably, Attorney March. Maybe we can talk about other aspects because we haven't yet discussed how a business, for example, who would want to go global will tackle global laws. So maybe that's another area that we can discuss in the future. So you want to go to APAC or do you want to go to Europe, for example? I'm sure you have experiences in bringing businesses to the global market. So probably in our next season, so we can invite you back.
Yes.
Yep.
For parting words, being an entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart. But if you do it right, you're very consistent in what you do, and you love what you're doing, it can be very, very prosperous for you. So don't be afraid, and don't look at all these reportorial requirements that I've let down. I've shown you as a deterrent. because after all these things, once you've done everything correctly, it can be just a little dent in your profit margin, but when you're operating and you're doing everything right, it can be very profitable for you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Great
Thank
work,
you so
Story March.
much. It was
Yep.
great to see you. Stay
Thank
well.
you.
Hi to the family.
Thanks, Story March. Yep. We'll put that in the exam.
There we go.
Yeah. True or false, ito Tori Mas series. Tori Mas, hope to see you again, and then again, thank you for your first time, in the sharing your knowledge and expertise to the BounceBack Network family. So again, on behalf of our founder Jason De La Rosa, and of course Colin and Vishen, and our other partners, thank you very much for spending and investing your time with us today. Maraming salamat, attorney. Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you. I enjoyed the episode.
Thank you po.
Thank you.
Salamat. Bye. Oh, there you go, Colin. Wow, amazing, right? I mean, you need really a lot of grit and guts to be an entrepreneur with what attorney March has presented, right? So, whew.
Yeah, Sam. I think you can see why I was so excited to have Attorney March on. She's quite the expert, and
Yep.
I have to say I've actually used the services of her companies myself, so I highly recommend them. That I loved her parting words, though, having just laid out all of these things that sound so complicated and such a headache to comply with. She gave the perfect advice, which is, look, don't let that deter you. Stick with it. Persevere, and there are people that can help you. But do it the right way. That's, I think, the message we're really trying to give here. Don't cut the corners. Do things the right way.
Yep, definitely. So, Colin, here's our usual, parting slide. So again, season 1, episode 9, everyone. So thank you for staying with us. Those of you who were with us since episode 1, thank you very much. One more episode to go. But before we go, I'd like to thank our partners, of course. And then, Colin, can you please talk about our 10th episode? So.
Yeah, so I think people, now that we're getting towards the end, can kind of see the method behind the madness of our program flow. We've started off, if I could just take even a moment to review, because I think I always like to say there's people who watch us today who maybe just discovered us. They didn't know that there's been 8 episodes before this. So we've actually taken you through the journey over the last few weeks, starting with what does it take to be successful, and then navigating through questions around marketing and digital channels, and then why does strategy matter? How do you make a strategy for your business? What are the things around leadership that are very important? And then even into topics like data and analytics. We had great guests from the Analytics Association of the Philippines a couple weeks back. And even, can you believe, we've even tackled artificial intelligence last week. So we've really been through, and I really encourage everyone to go back and watch the episodes that you missed. And I know, Sam, you're going to talk a little bit in a moment about motivation, why they should do that. But then looking forward to our last episode, I thought actually it was great to tie up this first season 1 with legal and then finance, right? So we've had the legal today, and then next week we have the importance of financial planning for small business. So once you're good and compliant with all the agencies and things, now obviously you need to really also have really good discipline around your financial planning. So we have our guest, Laika Bayan, who is with the Heinrich Foundation, and we'll give a full introduction to her next week. But you can really look forward to that, and as I'm looking forward to it too.
Yeah, thank you. And Colin, yep, I honor you for designing this on top of the competency framework of BounceBack, right? So again, hats off to Colin Christie. He's actually the one who designed all of these talks and invited most of the speakers, actually not all of the speakers, right? So Colin, let's tell our audience again, where is this going to head? You've seen there on the lower right, it's a digital badge, for certified global entrepreneur, right? So again, everyone, this is what makes our series different. It's because at the end of this, again, as we mentioned to you, we are going to cut the teaching portions of each of the episodes, and then we're going to have an exam for each, and then you're going to take it, in BounceBack Academy. If you pass it, you're going to get this digital badge. Colin, happy to note we're talking to a blockchain provider, and we're asking them if they can sponsor, maybe turn these badges into either with blockchain or with NFTs ideally. So again, not yet done, but hopefully they will make it into an NFT because the badge now becomes valuable. More than just the knowledge that you've gained from the series. It's actually your achievement in passing the exam that Colin, Christy, myself, and Dishan are going to come up with. So for each of the episodes, along with the speakers, of course, right? And Colin, it doesn't end there. So once you've gotten the badges, right? So you're going to go through this with us. This is our vision that at the end of this, you will be better than us. You'll be like master entrepreneurs. In fact, some of you already are master entrepreneurs. So after the Adept certification, you can go for expert certification, which we can roll out probably in the next seasons, maybe seasons 2 and 3. So you can see there the hour requirements or investments, and then later on, hopefully, this will lead you to become a certified global entrepreneur master. And by that time, hopefully, you'll be a member of Global Chamber already. So you'll be plugged into that global community of entrepreneurs across 500 cities worldwide, right? So we're going to talk about that later. But this is the roadmap that we have laid out for you, again, to help you bring your business to global markets. Okay? So Colin, quite excited for what our team, especially our interns, are preparing for season 2 of global entrepreneurship, right? But shout out again to our partners again. Thank you, Bluepoint Foundation, a 22-year-old training and certification company. They are providing the learning management system and exam system for global entrepreneurship. 22 years, again founded by former Senator Jovita Salonga. Thank you, Bluepoint Foundation, Maggie and Angels, Antonio, if you're watching. Thank you very much for helping us, throughout the episodes. Again, also Dominguez PR, again Mel Dominguez. Thank you very much within your team, Tin. Feliciano, thank you very much for helping us to tell the story of global entrepreneurship to our media partners. And of course, again, Colin, Global Chamber, please. Yeah.
Yes, so as Sam mentioned, Global Chamber, we have chapters all around the world. We have this huge network of business folks in 500 metropolitan areas, all continents, everything from Asia, South America, North America, Europe, etc. And it's a membership organization. So we encourage you to go to globalchamber.org. It's not .com, it's .org, globalchamber.org. And you can find out about the benefits of being a member and also the process of joining. But we do have a very special offer in light of this partnership, in light of the pandemic, in light of trying to really help everyone. And that is, we're giving a full 50% off on your membership. So to bail of that, that's quite simple. You just go to our Facebook page, to Global Chamber on Facebook, and then just PM us there. And then we'd be happy to work with you and through the onboarding process and availing of the discount.
Yeah, thank you, Colin, for this generous offer to the BounceBack Network community members. Thank you very much. And of course, Business Lady Toolbox. Our colleague is not here, but BET. It's a South African developed business solution for entrepreneurs. It's like your business in your pocket because through your phone you can manage your business. And again, shout out to our early adopter program members. We hope you're enjoying your journey and getting to know more about the Business Enabling Toolbox. Solution developed by our colleague Dishan Maharaj, who cannot join us today, unfortunately. So please again. BET also has a special, package for BounceBack Network members, exclusive 70% off. Colin, it's like almost $1,000 discount, right? That Dishan is giving for this for this discount. Just type in the BB plus GC plus BET 70 on the Grow plans. If you go to the site of meeting. We're going to flash it later. And what's the beauty of this call is that, Dishan is very generous to offer 10% of the proceeds of membership signups to the COVID relief efforts of OneStop Philippines. So again, once again, Dishan, thank you very much for your generosity. And of course, regards to your wife also, who co-developed BET with you. So
yeah, and Sammy, if I can just say real quick, since he wasn't able to join today, just so people understand this is a phenomenal online toolbox. It's very easy to access. You just use your web browser. You can see there, Sam has flashed up the key features. And it really helps you with education. So, we've just given you some information here in our coaching series, but if you want to dive even deeper, there's actually training on this toolbox platform. But then it actually gives you the tools, the really practical tools to day in and day out manage your business. Everything from finance to marketing to legal to all the things that you need to do. It helps you with checklists and the day-to-day management of your business. And it also scales, so you can start with just a single person if you just have your own. If you're a startup with only one person, but then if you scale and grow even to a large size, the platform will scale and grow with you. So really encourage everyone just to search for that, and also you can go to the Global Entrepreneurship PH, the Global Entre PH page on Facebook, and PM us there, and we'd be happy to assist you further with understanding how to use this toolbox.
Yeah, thank you, Colin. And of course, here's the code again. BB plus, it's easy to memorize. BounceBack plus Global Chamber plus BET 7. That's the code BB plus GC plus BET 70. Okay, and all grow plans. And of course, please like our page, Global Entrepreneurship on Facebook, or Global Entrep PH, capital PH. The address is below. And please do join our group. This group's actually, most of the members are from our early adopter program. In addition to the EAP benefit, Colin, Dishan, and I are also giving mentorship, especially for those who need it during these times. And of course, some of our speakers for the past episodes, you can also send them messages. We can post their details there in the group. So facebook.com/groups/global-entrep. Okay, Colin, final episode on next week, July 21st. So more than half the year already. And we'll take a short break, everyone, after this. And then we're on to season 2 of Global Entrepreneurship. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing now, Colin. So
yeah, so Sam, I also just like to thank you and Jason and the entire team at BounceBack Network. I know we still have one more episode to go, so I'll give a proper thank you at the end of episode 10. But I do just want to thank you. The audience should know a lot of work goes in behind the scenes to make something like this happen. And so I really appreciate all the work that you and the team behind the scenes is doing to make this possible.
Thank you. We'll pop the champagne, Colin. So, and of course, shout out to Doug and all of our colleagues at Global Chamber for watching us, despite the time differences, both live and on the replay. So I'm seeing their comments actually on our feed, so happening. So once again, Colin, thank you very much. It's already Wednesday afternoon, but again, BounceBack Network colleagues, thank you very much for staying with us, for 9 episodes already. Join us next week, July 21st. We may have a surprise announcement for you at that time. And of course, again, on behalf of my colleague, Jason De La Rosa, the founder of BounceBack Philippines, this is Sam Jacoba. With my friend and colleague, Colin Christie, thank you again for another afternoon, learning how to take your business global. Maraming salamat po, and then God bless everyone.
Do you want to have the foresight of Warren Buffett or Steve Jobs? Growing your business couldn't be easier. BET's unique and easy-to-use platform is your ultimate business companion. Available whenever you need it, no matter where you are, 24/7.
And who wouldn't want their business to do better? Whether you want to expand, increase sales, or spread out to new locations, it's important to know what you need to do, why you need to do it, and how you should do it.
BET gives you all the essential tools that you need to maximize your profits. Keep track of your finances, target the right customers, become an exceptional leader, assess risk, and set goals for your business. Cross-device functionality and a comprehensive toolbox of downloadable pre-populated templates are just some of the benefits of BET.
Let BET show you the what, why, and how of setting achievable goals for your business